Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm your host, Usha Kumar. This new year, we are all so excited because I have a great lineup of guests and topics that we're going to be discussing on Practical Talk Time. And sharing this chair of host will also be Sandra Robel for many of the shows. Today I have a wonderful guest, a Renaissance man, a retired chemist, a pianist, and an author. So please join me in welcoming Rudy Behrens. Rudy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
It was such a pleasure talking to you over phone, trying to find out all of these various interests that you have. Right. And you seem to be so adept at all of these. And what's that secret?
I don't know. My mother told me when I was able to understand that I was like a shark. I had to keep moving to live. I don't seem to be, restless, I guess is a good word, and interested in learning every day. My son, when he was in the first grade, or kindergarten, the teacher told me this later, in his little chair, and the first grade teacher came in to size up the kids to see whether what kind of class she was going to get the next semester. And so my son was right close to the two women talking over him. And so the kindergarten teacher said, Sally, she's no problem. And Todd, my son, you won't have any trouble with him. And so my son raised his head up to the teachers and said, yes, I like to be teached. And so, so that seems to be a family trait, because my grandson, who's now 13, is in that same mode of learning. And to me, if you learn something every day, it's a successful day, as long as there's no major disruptions in other fields.
Yeah. You are a resident of New Fairfield?
New Fairfield.
So that's the Danbury area.
Yeah.
And how long have you lived here?
84, end of 84, so almost 30 years.
And you had your career right here in Danbury?
No. Career was in New Jersey a lot for a large company, which is now Pfizer, pharmaceutical company. And the last 11 years was with companies. It was Ciba-Geigy. They merged, a Swiss company, and now it's Novartis, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical chemical companies in the world.
So you worked as a chemist? I mean, what was your role?
I was a research manager at Novartis, and actually also at the other company for a while.
I gather you studied chemistry and microbiology in Rutgers, in New Jersey?
Yes.
So you were educated there?
And I was so lucky. It depends on when you're born, I guess, but when I went to Rutgers, there was no such thing as microbiological institutes anywhere, and in the agriculture department, there was a man, Selman Waksman, who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine as a soil scientist, discovering antibiotics in the soil. And it turns out that this was an extremely important event, because his streptomycin, which eventually started the antibiotic industry, mostly concentrated in New Jersey at the time, the streptomycin killed tuberculosis bacteria, which was then the second biggest killer of mankind in the world. So it was extremely important. Before that, of course, Alexander Fleming in England accidentally or saw bread mold but didn't do much with it. And then some others over there, the British Isles, developed the penicillin, which came out late in the Second World War.
See, that is why it's such a big dilemma for me. As an interviewer, you are so well versed in so many subjects. So we're going to break it up into different subjects have a series of shows with you.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
And I believe you're also so heavy into economics.
Yes.
So in addition to chemistry, music, and what else? Economics?
Humor.
And humor.
The book.
That's where you write the book.
Yeah,
right?
that's where my book will be out in a week. Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
So do you mind if I start with economics?
No.
Because I really want to pick your brain on this.
Okay.
And see what you think about the current economy
It's so
in
nice.
Connecticut and in the nation.
It's so nice for somebody to actually listen to you. These kids have been going to WestCon, auditing courses for 20 years now. I'm not young.
Wow.
And to get kids to listen, there are very few, and I've taken every economics class they offered.
I see.
But my learning started way back when I was a young chemist, and I get a 401k, and all of a sudden I decided I'm not going to make a living or a big living as a chemist, and studied economics on my own, and bought stock and traded stock and so forth, and developed, I hate to call it, it's not a system, but a method that seemed to work. And it worked well enough so that I met my goal not to, I didn't like mortgages, so I paid off a mortgage very quickly. And when you do that, you have more leverage, and you start, you
And
can magnify.
which years did you have this mortgage, and when did you?
Finish. Again, I started in 1969.
What is the interest rate then?
I was still around in 1950. It was 1 to 3%, but it went up to 6%.
So that was not much then.
No, back in the 50s. But in 69, it would be more like 6% for a mortgage.
Yeah, I believe from 60 to 80, it went from 6% to 10% or something.
Oh, well, in
Went all the way
the
up.
70s,
10 or 11.
when President Carter was in power, it went berserk. In 1981, you could have made if you knew better, you could have made the most money, more money than most people make in stock, with no risk, and that would be
just put it in the bank, and you got a very good
not the
interest,
bank.
didn't you?
You buy U.S. Treasuries.
How much was it paying?
5%? No, the Treasuries, 30-year Treasury would go up. It went up as high as 16 to 17%.
Okay.
And think of it this
really?
way: for 30 years.
Oh my God, we haven't seen anything like that recently.
Oh no! I hope we. Yeah, that really was a major disruption, and people were so frightened over that because I don't know if it ever happened. But anyway, think of it. You don't pay state tax on that either. So for 30 years, you're getting 16. So the smart thing to do if you were in the right stage of life is to get the biggest mortgage in this case,
just from the house, because
borrow anything you could and just put it all in treasuries.
Yes.
Yeah. So
how wonderful that would be if it were true now.
How many people steadily, and this is steady for 30 years. How many people can make 16% on their money every year without?
We are not even getting 1% now, and which
the
is
banks.
why I wanted to talk about economics with you.
Yeah, the banks. Well, I started off on the wrong foot with the first mortgage. I got a 15-year mortgage at 6% in 1969, and it was. And the banker made me feel like he's doing me a big favor. And I was so upset over that. I guess I never forgot it.
Did you take a fixed rate, or did you take
6%?
You took a fixed rate.
Oh, fixed rate, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't have
because we had variable. They had variable, and I think they had some kind of a cap where the variable rate cannot increase more than 6 points from where it started.
Yeah, banks. Like insurance companies, make their own rules. And in the case of banks, of course, they get SEC and some of the other, the government to put the stamp of approval on it, but it still isn't good for the customer in most cases, unfortunately. And of course, now if you put money in a savings bank or commercial bank even, you're getting less than 0.1%. And So the banks don't suffer, the people, the taxpayers do.
So you must have been a baby or very young when we had the Great Depression here.
I was born, is it allowed to say that
Yeah.
on television?
It's your
1928.
choice.
I'm 85 years old.
So you were a baby. You
Yeah,
were
well,
young, very young.
28, and a
Okay.
year later, the crash came, of course.
Yeah.
And but it's enjoyable. I enjoy well, now since my eyes are bad, I can get the talking books, and I'm reading lately 9 and 10 books a month on variety of subjects.
Oh, wow.
It's just, I don't know, I'm just fascinated by the subjects I wasn't able to concentrate on in the past.
Yeah. And how was it growing up in that kind of economy?
We never knew we were poor.
I see.
Lived in Newark, New Jersey. It's not easy to live there now. It's not as good as it was then. And people were generally poor, and there were so few products. Today we have so many millions of new patents and products, and a lot of the kids take it for granted that these are always around, and they can't fathom how it was back then. I lived in father and me, I was an only child, lived in what they call a railroad flat.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a coal stove in the kitchen in the back, no other heat in the apartment. And they got me in a little room off of the living room where it was room for a single bed and a desk. And then I had my piano out there, thank God. But when you don't know anything better, you don't think you're in bad shape.
I mean, you don't miss something that you never
Right.
knew about.
Exactly.
And,
No telephone in the house.
which
You had to
is-
go to the corner candy store to call your relatives out wherever, and they'd have a lot of quarters to throw in the box. So yeah, it was very interesting.
So, Rudy, growing up, I mean, you studied, you became a chemist.
Yes.
And then you got interested because of your 401k and in investments.
Yeah.
In economics.
Yes.
So what was your understanding of economics then at the time that you had just started learning it? And what do you think about it now?
Well, the first thing was to make money in the stock market, like so many people try to do, and don't follow up. You just don't make a gambling thing out of it. You have to study it. And the first thing I learned, thank goodness, was contrary opinion. There's of all the services that I bought over the years, and I used to chart and do all that, there was one that came through always, and that was called Investors Intelligence. It's still around. And what they do is to go through all the advisory services in the country and the brokerage house recommendations, and they categorize them as either bullish, consolidation, or bearish. Mm-hmm. And so they add them up, and simple curve, and they find out that when these guys are bullish to a certain level, and over the years they've developed a pretty good threshold, and when it's up there, then they say it's time to sell because everybody's saying buy.
Yeah.
And when
so
everybody
the contrarian
buys,
goes and sells it.
yeah, and that's the time to sell, and that's the key, and that's worked very well.
Up to when? Up to when did it work? Does it still work?
Oh
well?
yeah, it's in fact once in a while they'll on CNBC they will mention that, and in fact in the last 2 weeks I heard a little piece about the quoting that, saying that it is now at very optimistic levels, and
Yeah.
which is bad. And now since the January, there's a lot of junk in when you study this. Some is worse or better than other. And there's one adage that the first 5 days of January, if it's up or down, that'll predict what happens the rest
of the year.
And then there's another, if it ends up lower at the end of January than the beginning, that's also a bad sign.
And then there's the January effect where
Yeah.
they think that everything goes up. to
Yeah,
some
well,
extent.
last January, the first trading day, the Dow went up 386 points. And this time it went down 135 points. So I don't know.
So what do you think?
I just keep that in mind. And look, the three Nasdaq, the Dow, and the S&P have gone up 25 to 30% each, and last year. And things don't go to the sky. Our inflation rate is very low. It was 1.1% last year, and you can't expect big growth.
That number is debatable, I think. Now.
No,
because inflation, in some respect, because the way they calculate inflation now, it excludes a lot of numbers
well,
that
CPI
should be there, which would
is a core. There they separate in two groups, and then the whole CPI, Consumer Price Index. But it's very low, and because there's no demand. And this is where this is when this book is finished, I'm going to continue on with this other book, The Rainy Day Years Ahead.
So that's the second book you're writing?
Yes.
Now.
Yes. I did a lot of writing papers and talking on chemistry all my life, so I'm getting into the other areas I like so much. In this case, academic.
So why do you think rainy days are ahead? Rainy years are ahead? Yeah,
the rainy day years ahead. The theme there, and again, I don't hear anybody talk. Maybe because they have on these television programs they have sponsors, and they can't say anything negative about these sponsors, and they'll have stockbrokers on, and everybody says it's going up, and away.
Yes.
Nobody can say it may go down. An event, so that's the pull in the what they call the dumb money, and the smart money doesn't advertise. They know what they're doing, and they know how to get. It's a redistribution of wealth, I guess. So you're supposed to get the masses money and become rich by your philosophy. And in the case of why I think they can't say, my whole premise is that demand in this country, because of the demographics, we're not, women are not having as many children anymore, so our growth is nil, except for immigration.
Yeah.
Right. And that's even leveling out, because Mexico is doing much better, and they're not. You haven't heard too much about immigration problems in the border lately.
Exactly, because so many companies have moved there. Manufacturing has moved there, and I think they even make jets now, jet airplanes.
Oh, really?
Right
yeah.
there, yes. They have a huge
good for them.
production of that going on.
Yeah. That'll solve our immigration problem.
Yeah, maybe we'll be moving there.
Yeah, well, who knows? It won't be as cold, that's for sure. So the demand, I mentioned when I was young, how we had nothing. I mean, these products hadn't been invented. We had a radio. That's about it. No television, no computer, no cell phones. And the young people can't fathom that. I took a writing course, and I had the introduction to this book just to test it, and so I made copies to pass around to the class, and it was my turn to have this thing reviewed, this chapter, and so the first girl got up after reviewing, and she said, "Nobody could live like this. Is this fiction or is this nonfiction?" I said, "No, that's the way life was, believe it or not." So anyway, the demand eventually, I think of it as a product cycle. Product cycle, you get a new idea, you make it in your garage, you make a prototype, you bring it to the local department store or something to test sell it, and it goes over pretty good. And so now you're building a little factory, and then all of a sudden, eventually, everybody in the world has two of them. And so who wants any more of those?
See, another thing I'm seeing is that we've been moving away from manufacturing here in this
Yes.
country. All of the manufacturing has been pushed out into the third world or to China or
Yeah, we're
elsewhere.
down to little
And
less.
we're not really making anything. And the companies, you know, if you were to evaluate companies the way you did your fundamental
Right.
evaluation before, you know,
Oh, God,
a
it's a
few
different-
decades ago.
It's a different
You know,
world.
you have products, that company, you can evaluate it to say,
Yes.
this is the product they're having, and these
Yes.
are the innovations they're coming up with, and this is what the cost is going to be, and this is how much they're going to be having as profit. But now what's happening is everybody is just selling dreams.
Right.
And there's no product
Right.
as such, not even a service. It's just a very
Right.
weird way of service, which is really provided by the people themselves,
Right.
not even provided by the company. And a lot of people are making, I wouldn't say people, I would say big corporations. They are making a lot of money with these imaginary products or things that people really don't want,
Right.
but they somehow make people believe they need it and,
Absolutely.
and market it to them.
Right. And as long as they sell it, I guess, you know, then they'll end up in the tag sales and so forth in the future.
So that's another area I want to ask is about unemployment. So what do you think about the current, I think right now the Senate, they're getting together to vote on whether they're going to be extending unemployment
Yeah, and that's
insurance for people.
it was for many years 3 months, and that's it.
Yeah.
And now it's 2 years, and they want to extend that. So what they're making or doing to me is making permanent unemployed people.
Yes.
Nowadays, if you're in a poverty level, I used a couple of years ago it was 22,000 or lower for. But there's so many perks, and even Obama, President Obama said safety net for these people. I mean, you add up all the safety nets, and what this does is take the incentive away for a family to actually, or head of the family to go out and work.
Rudy, we only have 5 minutes left.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's how fast it goes when we talk about
All right.
this.
Oh yeah, it's a long life.
Yeah. So what do you think of the unemployment rate being above 7, and that doesn't even include all the people that stopped looking for
I heard this
jobs?
morning, in fact, on CNBC, and I listen to these experts and enjoy that, and try to figure out who's got a motive, what their motive is. But it was total now of 14 to 15%, and that includes those looking for work. Set is 6.97%. We're going to learn that tomorrow at 8:30.
Yeah.
And the other is those that have given up, and
it is ridiculous because I know a few decades ago, companies would hire a good person, smart person who can learn, who can
Right.
adapt and be flexible and
Right.
grow with the company.
Right.
And now, the companies are no longer willing to train someone in software, and software
Right.
keeps changing every 5 years.
Yeah.
If somebody is out of work for a few years, that's it. They can never get back in. And then you're constantly saying there's a gap between the vacant jobs and the skill level of the people that are unemployed. But no company seems to take responsibility to just hire them and to train them into the jobs.
In the 70s, we had 75, 77% manufacturing GDP, and now it's down to less than 10%. And and some of these products, well, most of them are, a lot of them in China and other places, but that affects us a lot. So it's a very worrisome thing, and that's, again, the theme of the book. The product cycle I mentioned earlier was to extend that to the demand of all these products. If things got a little sour, you got all these products, you don't have to buy another one. If you feel good, you will, maybe, or if it's another color or something not important. But when things get tough, then the shrinking back will really freeze us down a bit.
What do you think about business and economic world, talking about global economy?
The global
Do you think it's working? I mean, like, to what extent is it working here?
Oh yeah, it's as long as they let them go. I feel all these people that are. The reason we had wars so much is some people had a lot more than others, and they'd fight each other to get some. Let them live and develop their own. As long as they're doing it in a good way, I think that's a good thing. That we've got a lot in this country, and again we have safety nets. In the Depression, you'd starve to death. You would have nothing.
Yeah, which is why we had so many new laws to help people with that.
Yes.
But now they want to cut down all the food stamps and everything else. We only have 2 more minutes left.
Well, there's such a great abuse of that. And I think that's the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans are upset because our borrowing is going out of sight. And it's going to affect our next generations. Somebody's got to pay for this. We can't default like a little South American country.
Yeah, but
could.
how about having the companies? They're saying, oh, I have so many vacant jobs, but I don't have someone to fill it. And then you have a whole bunch of people standing in the line saying, I don't have a job. Now I need food stamp for my family. Now I need this.
Right.
So who's to blame? Shouldn't we have some kind of a force some people to take some responsibility in this area?
Yeah, and if the government were good managers of their businesses or the giveaways.
Yeah, we only have a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead and finish it.
Yeah, if they were more efficient, it would work much better. And there are a lot of people that are taking advantage of it, and that's no good. And that hurts so many others that are working and making low wages.
So maybe they'll have to put some pressure on those people to go get a job. But then the jobs must be provided too for them, and then they probably work. Right now I think it's at a point where a person, if he worked all day with the minimum wage, would make maybe only $1,000 more than someone who was just on welfare.
Yeah.
And that is why it's not an incentive to work.
Right. In fact, I think, in fact, they probably do better by not working.
Yeah.
And that's never...
And that shouldn't be.
No, definitely not. For sure.
So I wish you well.
It's a big subject.
I wish you well on your book, upcoming book on economics. And be sure to come back on the show when you finish the book and when you're publishing
all right.
it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rudy. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
And that's it, folks. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, goodbye.